Now, this global war of desolation, or as it's called Armageddon, according to the prophecies, is expected to destroy millions, if not billions of lives. That's the objective of the synagogue of Satan. And this may be done, or in their mind, they may even have planned to use nuclear weaponry. Now, some of you may say, Karriem, that's unlikely. Why would nations want to launch nuclear weapons? You don't know the mind of Satan. Well, let us consider the most recent events to answer this question, since you think it's unlikely. Well, first, since the inauguration of President Biden, the U.S. have flown nuclear-capable B-52 bombers over the Middle East, near Iran, on 2 occasions, as a so-called show of strength against Iran. The first occurred a week after President Biden took office. Shows he wasn't interested in returning to the nuclear deal anyway. These USA B-52 bombers were accompanied by jets from Saudi Arabia, which is supposed to be a Muslim nation, just as Iran is. But Saudi Arabia has jets that's flying next to the B-52 bombers capable of carrying nuclear weapons. Answer that for me, Mr. Muslim from the East. Why is that happening? Is it gross deviation from Prophet Muhammad? You can't even call it deviation. You got to even question the belief in him from the outset. The other threat of the B-52 bombers occurred several days ago, March 7th. And these bombers were accompanied by military aircraft from Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. So if there is no Messiah, that area in the Middle East has no hope. Because it seems to me all of it's going up in smoke if this war of desolation takes place. Now, about 2 weeks ago, about a dozen U.S. congresspersons sent President Biden a letter asking him to relinquish sole authority to launch nuclear missiles. Oh, you mean he has sole authority to launch nuclear missiles? Yes, indeed. And this is consistent with the powers of a dictator. These Congress people presented President Biden in that letter with several recommendations for modifying existing laws, specifically those authorized on the heels of 9/11 terrorist attack under George W. Bush. These modifications would bring Congress or congressional authority back into the balance of the war powers of the United States. Furthermore, just last week, a group of senators now introduced a bill, which they hope will become law, that if passed would strip the office of the U.S. president from having unchecked power to do whatever he pleases with the U.S. military. So many in Congress are becoming more aware of the great war, which is on the horizon, and they want to be able to have some say in it. Now, to this day, the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Office of the President has not agreed on what it is that precisely constitutes the need for an official declaration of war. I read the other day when President Biden launched those strikes in Syria, where some of the Congress people were very upset because they felt, particularly the new ones, that Congress should make an official declaration of war. Well, what constitutes a declaration of war? That's the prevailing problem for the U.S. Congress. So for those who call President Trump a dictator, if you remember, we reminded you last year that the laws enacted through Congress, particularly on the heels of 9/11, gave the U.S. president seemingly unfettered power over the U.S. armed forces. These laws really dismiss the authority of the U.S. Congress to effectively participate in or intervene in how the U.S. president uses the armed forces of the United States on both foreign and domestic soils. So while some of you were bashing Trump as wanting to be king and a dictator, I said some things about his attitude as well, in his actions as a demon, like the other presidents before him. But I also said the problem lied with the laws that enabled President George W. Bush and those who followed him to become near dictators over the American people. Now, of course, the war hawks within and backing the Biden administration will fight against this bill. They're going to fight so that it won't gain traction. But again, last year, we advised the American people to require a national referendum to repeal these unconstitutional laws, since it is the sons and daughters of the common people who are being used to fight wars to acquire the oil, drugs, and resources of nations for a few satanic families that own the U.S. presidency and the U.S. Congress.